Political correctness is a term used to describe language, policies, or measures that are intended to avoid offense or disadvantage to members of particular groups in society, in public discourse and the media. The term is generally used as a pejorative with an implication that these policies are excessive or unwarranted. Since the late 1980s, the term has been used to describe a preference for inclusive language and avoidance of language or behavior that can be seen as excluding, marginalizing, or insulting to groups of people disadvantaged or discriminated against, particularly groups defined by ethnicity, sex, or gender. Early usage of the term politically correct by leftists in the 1970s and 1980s was as self-critical satire. Usage was ironic, rather than a name for a serious political movement. It was considered an in-joke among leftists used to satirize those who were too rigid in their adherence to political orthodoxy. The modern pejorative usage of the term emerged from conservative criticism of the New Left in the late 20th century. This usage was popularized by a number of articles in the New York Times and other media throughout the 1990s, and was widely used in the debate surrounding Alan Bloom's 1987 book The Closing of the American Mind. The term gained further currency in response to Roger Kimball's Tenured Radicals and conservative author Dinesh D'Souza's 1991 book A Liberal Education. Commentators on the political left in the United States contend that conservatives use the concept of political correctness to downplay and divert attention from substantively discriminatory behavior against disadvantaged groups. They also argue that the political right enforces its own forms of political correctness to suppress criticism of its favored constituencies and ideologies. In the United States, the term has played a major role in the culture war between liberals and conservatives. William Safire states that the first recorded use of the term politically correct in the typical modern sense is by Toni Cade Bambara in the 1970 anthology The Black Woman. The term probably entered modern use in the United Kingdom around 1975. In the early to mid-20th century, the phrase politically correct was used to describe strict adherence to a range of ideological orthodoxies within politics. In 1934, the New York Times reported that Nazi Germany was granting reporting permits only to pure Aryans whose opinions are politically correct. As Marxist-Leninist movements gained political power, the phrase came to be associated with accusations of dogmatic application of doctrine in debates between American communists and American socialists. This usage referred to the Communist Party line which, in the eyes of the socialists, provided correct positions on all political matters. According to American educator Herbert Cole, writing about debates in New York in the late 1940s and early 1950s, the term politically correct was used disparagingly to refer to someone whose loyalty to the CP line overrode compassion and led to bad politics. It was used by socialists against communists, and was meant to separate out socialists who believed in egalitarian moral ideas from dogmatic communists who would advocate and defend party positions regardless of their moral substance. In the 1970s, the American New Left began using the term politically correct. In the essay The Black Woman, an anthology, Toni Cade Bambara said that a man cannot be politically correct and a chauvinist too. Thereafter, the term was often used as self-critical satire. Deborah L. Schultz said that throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the New Left, feminists, and progressives used their term politically correct ironically as a guard against their own orthodoxy in social change efforts. PC is used in the comic book Merton of the Movement by Bobby London, which was followed by the term ideologically sound in the comic strips of Bart Dickon. In her essay, Toward a Feminist Revolution, Ellen Willis said, in the early 80s, when feminists used the term political correctness, it was used to refer sarcastically to the anti-pornography movement's efforts to define a feminist sexuality. Stuart Hall suggests one way in which the original use of the term may have developed into the modern one. According to one version, political correctness actually began as an in-joke on the left. Radical students on American campuses acting out an ironic replay of the bad old days BS when every revolutionary group or school had a party line about everything. They would address some glaring examples of sexist or racist behavior by their fellow students in imitation of the tone of voice of the Red Guards or Cultural Revolution Commissar. Not very politically correct. Comrade Alan Bloom's 1987 book The Closing of the American Mind heralded a debate about political correctness in American higher education in the 1980s and 1990s. Professor of English Literary